Dr. Shabir, welcome to Let the Quran Speak.
Pleasure to be on.
You know, Dr. Shabir, the Quran presents men and women as being complementary to each other and as being spiritual equals, right? They can both access God and they can both worship God in the same way. But when we look at the Hadith, I feel like we get a slightly different picture. So I wanted to get your perspective on that, Dr. Shabir. You see, for example, that women are seen as subservient to men. That, for example, their acts of worship might not be accepted if they displease their husbands, right? Or it's almost like they might be the sexual playthings of their husbands. So some hadith in the 6 collections that we have talked about before seem to present that image of women. So I want to get your perspective on that.
Yeah, to be sure, Safia, even in the Quran you may find some things which would not be, palatable to a modern feminist. And we have to remember that the Quran was revealed at a time when patriarchy was in vogue. It is 1400 years ago, and the rights given to women nowadays took a long time to be developed and so on through many centuries of struggle and all of that. But on the whole, you're right in noticing a stark difference between the presentation of this dynamic between men and women in the Quran and the same presentation in the Hadith. Rather, we should say there's a completely different situation in the Hadith. And in the Quran, you have again and again the emphasis on obeying your parents, following your parents, giving company to your parents, and so on, pleasing your parents, and all of that, several times. But in contrast, we find in the Hadith that there is this added requirement for women that you just mentioned, that the woman has to please her husband. So it looks like women have one additional great responsibility here. And to make matters worse, there is but at least 2 hadiths that I think should be mentioned in this regard. And I only mention them because there are others out there who are giving the impression, because they speak in generalities. They speak in generalities, okay, you must follow the Prophet, you must follow the Hadith. The Hadiths are inspired by God. The Prophet doesn't speak of his own desire and all of that, and the Hadith must be equated with the Quran. There's even a Hadith itself that says that it must not be that you are leaning back on your couches and then a statement of mine comes to you and you say we're going to follow the Quran only. And I had another hadith saying that I have been given the Quran وَمِثْلَهُ مَعَهُ, and something like it but other than it, which the scholars will gladly say this is the hadith. So that means as much as you believe in the Quran, you must believe in the hadith as well. They speak of these generalities and they don't mention certain hadiths, at least not often enough. So people don't hear these hadiths until they go read it for themselves, and then they're shocked and they're puzzled, like, are we supposed to follow this one too? But the scholars told us we're supposed to follow the hadith and we're supposed to believe in this one. And but how can I believe in this one? People have great difficulties with this. And often non-Muslims who want to detract from Islam will pick up on these hadiths and circulate them. And somebody will write an email to a Muslim friend and say, hey, my friend, I'm so glad we're friends. By the way, I came across this hadith and I was wondering, as a Muslim, how you might explain this.
Yes. So we get those lists.
Yeah.
People send us lists and ask us, how do we explain these hadith?
And they're asking not to understand, but to sow doubt in the minds of the Muslims. And naturally, when a hadith like this, is presented to a Muslim will be surprised and they will have doubts in their minds. But we clear those doubts by saying, let's take a balanced approach to hadith, by recognizing that there are some hadiths which could have been the mistake of the narrator, because one person told another who told another. People misremembered. People pick up something from the environment. They think the Prophet said it, but it's not the Prophet, peace be upon him, who said it. Maybe it originated from a companion of the Prophet, or maybe even from a later generation. So coming back to the 2 hadiths, which I feel it ought to be mentioned in this regard, a woman having this duty to please her husband. So one hadith says that the companions of the Prophet, peace be upon him, said to him, Messenger of God, the Persians are bowing to their king, so why shouldn't we prostrate before you? And he said, if I were to order anyone to prostrate before another human being, I would order the women to prostrate before their husbands. Mm-hmm. So this shows a level of authority and respect that the husband deserves over and above his wife. That is remarkable.
And strange because it
yes.
kind of goes against our understanding of our relationship with God. Like we should only prostrate to God, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Of course, the hadith is an if-then scenario, but still, to even use that as a kind of an example, it seems unbecoming. The second hadith I think worth mentioning in this regard is one that says, because we're talking about the duty to parents, right? Quran imposes on us the duty to our parents. And this is so paramount. It comes next to our duty to God. As the Quran is saying, وَقَضَى رَبُّكَ أَلَّا تَعْبُدُوا إِلَّا إِيَّاهُ. God has decided that you are to have no other God but Him. And وَبِالْوَالِدَيْنِ إِحْسَانًا. So right away, the kindness to your parents. Worship God, be kind to your parents. So a hadith says that if a man's body was covered with sores from head to foot, and his wife were to, I know it's going to sound gross, and I hesitate to mention it for that reason, but only for completion and to correct the mistaken narrative that is so widespread out there. Even if she were to lick the pus out of her husband's sores, the woman would not have completed fulfilling the rights that her husband has over her. Now, though this is really an exaggerated statement, and it must come from the narrators, it's hard to imagine that the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, put the matter in this way, placing such a heavy burden on a woman. It means that basically you have to be walking on eggshells around your husband, because, you know, how could you ever fulfill? And nothing like this is even said about the parents. So you can well imagine that there's some imbalance here. And we're just calling for a balanced approach to the hadith. Recognize that some hadiths have actually tipped the balance away from the way in which the Quran has presented things, whereas the Quran presents parents as having such rights over us. Now the hadith is presenting husbands as having this great supreme right over his wife.
How can we explain these hadith, Dr. Shabir?
Well, we can say that...
how did they come about?
You see, in a previous segment, Sophia, we talked about how hadith forgeries emerged. And if people wanted to support a certain political entity or whatever, even people were selling goods in the marketplace and they wanted to, popularize their goods. So they built interest in their goods by saying that the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, said that this or that is good to eat, for example. And they would circulate this in the community. They wouldn't tell the customer. A customer comes to the marketplace and the person says, the Prophet said this. They're not going to believe the customer, right? But what the grocer does is that he circulates the hadith within the community so that it will come back. People will come to know it, and they won't know where it emerged. But everybody's got this idea, we must eat cucumbers, for example, so they come to buy cucumbers. Now, the same thing is mentioned in introductory books of hadith. So every scholar of hadith should know this, that it's mentioned that sometimes a man wanted to put his wife in her place. So what did he do? He circulated a hadith in the community that would demean women, so that hadith would come back to his wife, and she would feel more respectful of her husband. So it seems to me that these hadiths are of that category. People, came up with these hadiths. Now, it's interesting that Aisha, the mother of the believers, had a similar type of conclusion about some hadiths, because there is a hadith that were being narrated by some of the men at that time. Respectful men, by the way, companions of the Prophet, peace be upon him. We respect them, we love them, but nonetheless, they're human beings. And they related a hadith saying that if three things pass, or if any one of the three things pass in front of you while you're praying, that cuts off your prayer. A dog, a donkey, or a woman. So when Aisha radiallahu anha heard this, it is reported that she said, you guys are equating us with dogs and donkeys. It's you guys, you see? So she had the conclusion already that men could be making things up. Not that these particular men made it up, but you see, they could be the victim themselves of something that is made up and circulated in the community. We hear so many things. Sometimes we can't remember where did we hear it from and what was the actual source. People mixed up their sources. And sometimes people could think that the Prophet, peace be upon him, said something. Because it's well known in the study of the history of religions that when something is accepted by a community as a fact, they easily attribute that to their hero or the founder of their religion. So, for example, let's take the Golden Rule, which is known in Christianity: do unto others as you would have others do unto you. This is known as the Golden Rule. It's attributed to Jesus, on whom be peace. But historians say this was so commonly said by sages and so on, even before Jesus, that people believed this to be a matter of fact, and naturally they retrojected this back to the prophet Jesus, because they thought that this is a good thing. Where do all good things come from? They come from Jesus, so it must have come from him. So similarly, the Muslim community took certain things to be good, truisms, and they just attributed these back to the Prophet, peace be upon him, because they thought it was so true. It must have originated from him.
All right, we'll leave it at that, Dr. Shabir.
Sure.
Assalamu alaikum.
We have some exciting news to share with you.
As you know, Let the Quran Speak has been on TV screens and social media for 22 years.
We've been reaching people all around the world, spreading positivity and good, and helping people experience the beauty of Islam and the accomplishments of Muslims.
We've been shooting in this very space for the past 2 decades.
And now, with the help of Allah, we're about to get the keys to Muslim Media Hub.
If you like what we're doing, you're going to love Muslim Media Hub even more.
Because it's the next step up.
Think new TV shows, podcasts, social media content, and films.
It will have new talent, more youth, and a lot more space and resources to do what we love: spread the message of Allah.
Our Muslim Media Hub costs $2.4 million.
We must close on this building on October 16, and for that, we need to raise $300,000.
How will we raise $300,000?
Easy, Safiya. All we need is 300 people to give $1,000 each.
If you can be one of this select 300, that's fantastic.
Otherwise, please give whatever you can. Every dollar counts.
It's our collective responsibility to share the message of Islam with our fellow human beings. Please help establish Muslim Media Hub so we can do this.
It's a sadaqah jariyah, something that will continue to be of benefit to the Muslim community long after we are gone.
Thank you, and may Allah bless you and your loved ones today and always.
Assalamu alaikum.